Hello again. So here we go. Time to get coding. Today's stream I'm gonna try to keep it to within an hour because Handmade Heroes on tonight and it starts in 2 hours and I don't want to go on and on and on into that time, so I'm gonna cut it short to an hour, which is shorter than what I usually do, but whatever. Let's see, I'm gonna work on my DLL loader, and right now it's, I've switched it so that I can always switch it back to doing platform layer loading when I'm done. But here it is doing the main thing, and it's basically the same idea. I haven't condensed it down into as few function calls as I should, like, but I'm not sure that I want to. Like, one nice thing is this means you control, like, you load the file like any file, so wherever you have it in memory you can do it. And what I could probably do is introduce an API to just simplify it down to this, but then still have this underneath way if you want to manage your shit in a unique way for some reason when you're using it. But all of that's kind of moot at the moment because it doesn't totally work, and I'm trying to split between two possibilities that I'm not sure about what I want to do. Also, let me take a look at one quick thing. This should say... Okay. Okay, so what I want to work on is this little bug that I have where it doesn't work for very long. Like, you'll see what I mean. So, a lot of this is running through the DLL, and it's all being manually loaded, which is nice, but, and to give you some proof that it's running through the DLL, like, the thing that generates this list of names, and that, like, figures out how to lay out, the thing that generates the list of names is in the platform layer, but the thing that calls that function is in the DLL, and also the thing that lays all that stuff out is in the DLL. And then obviously there's the push buffer that is being filled and then actually rendered on the platform layer. So there's all sorts of binding between the DLL and the app that's working the way it's supposed to. And I can, like, type and it captures input, right? You can go look at the C directory, and everything basically just works in this state. So that's nice. Let me get to the correct directory here. Data test. But then I try to open my usual test file to see what's going on, and we get a crash. And this is what I've been debugging for most of the day. And I'm not sure what it is. So, the other thing that's annoying is I haven't totally figured out how to get the debugger to be helpful here, which is making it more challenging than usual. I've tried to do some printf style debugging, but there's a problem with that. Is this thing isn't consistent because it doesn't seem to flush. Like it doesn't flush all the time. Like, it's every write doesn't seem to show up right away for some reason. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's not how this works. I should research and see if this is, like, reliably always showing messages in order. But I sometimes get things in different orders where, like, it shows this twice, and then like, here it's showing stuff afterwards. And you can see, like, it says, oh, this went wrong up here, and then it was during start redraw that this happened. But sometimes there's the start redraw happens and the end redraw and other stuff happens and it gets back into the platform layer and crashes there, blah blah blah. But none of this really is relevant because I've also got the address at where this happened, and that's always the same place. It's at the 3 terabytes address is where I've allocated the image of the DLL, the thing that actually runs, like, where the executable code is that it does stuff. and where all like data segments are and stuff. That all gets loaded in at 3 terabytes right now, so that I can get some consistency on behavior. But then the offset is always the same. It's always crashing here. So it's at that position where things go wrong. The problem is I don't have it associating debug symbols to this. And I've been torn all day between, do I figure out how to make this do debug symbols, or do I find a, like I just recently got this whole thing doing the printing into the debug stream so that I could look at it and maybe do printf style debugging, but then I realized that it's unreliable, so that's really not that helpful for tracking down what's going on. The only thing I know for sure is that the crash is happening in somewhere in the DLL code, and it's happening as it's doing a read. That's all I know, right? So, yeah. So, Fucon, basically the structure is quite similar to Handmade Hero, only for kind of different reasons, which is that you have a platform executable layer and then a 4coder functionality in the 4ed app module, right? Or whatever you want to call that, the 4ed app DLL or whatever. And there's a number of benefits that I get for doing that. I'm not doing looped live code editing, but the other nice things are by simply by the act of compiling it separately, I can guarantee that that piece of code has no dependencies, and then I can sort of troubleshoot problems by having that absolute barrier where it's a DLL barrier and the only things that communicate between those barriers are the function pointers I pass. Because only the function pointers that I pass do the communication and nothing else, I know that code runs on any platform the same way. So I only have to debug the main portion of the code on Win32 or whichever thing I find most suitable for debugging. And then the only problem is developing those platform layers, but that is a much smaller task than most of the kept functionality. So anyway, the mystery is, what is causing this? And I have to find a new attack at this, because I'm not able to do any of the things I would normally think to do to debug it. I know, the interesting thing is, I know where it is happening in bytecode, right? Like in the machine code, I know where it's happening. I just don't have a great way of turning that back into what code is causing this yet. But maybe if I understood how debug markup in the code works, I could look at that, maybe. Now, I'd have to learn how a PDB file is structured, and I don't know if I want to go that deep into that. I wish, the nice thing would be is if I knew how to add it to the list of modules. So maybe someone on stream will just say, oh, here's the API call that you couldn't find, right? I spent a while looking for something that says, oh, I'm making a module. I want to tell the operating system that I'm making a module, and like say, here's the file that I'm loading myself, here's the symbols, etc. Or a way to say, look, I know this isn't in a module, but let me associate let me tell you what PDB it is. If you can, yeah, in theory you could also use the platform layers for other projects if you just swapped in the DLLs. I don't know that it's as useful in that direction because the platform layer is not like, it's not a small amount of tweaking is the issue there, I don't think. I mean, you could imagine it being like, oh, if it's pretty similar, like if you have a thing that's going to display lots of text and, it's going to do some similar stuff and then maybe, yeah, you could probably rely on the same platform layer for a second thing and swap in a different DLL. Now, the other thing I can do, the reason I'm doing this DLL loading is so that I can add in a layer of flexibility that says if you build DLLs that don't interface with anything but the application layer, right? If you only talk to the interface that the app gives you, then your code runs anywhere after you built it once. Well, okay, so to explain more thoroughly, because Fucon is asking about the symbols problem, I have the PDB, I have the symbols for debugging this, I have the symbols for this disassembly, but I can't figure out how to get Visual Studio to associate that with this disassembly so long as that, because it's not even complaining that it can't find the symbols. It's saying this is not inside of a loaded module, right? The code that it was executing was code I allocated myself that I put in execute. I said, I had to set the protections to say I want this to be executable. And that's fine, and it works. Only problem is, it's not inside of a module, and it's only, apparently going to give me the ability to associate a PDB file if it's in one of these modules, right? So I don't know how to add my DLL to this list of modules. I haven't been able to find the API call for that. What I could maybe do is I could look into that right now. Let me pull up a new browser window, actually. Okay. So, something like Win32 API, and if you put in the word module, for example, you just get a bunch of crap about Python, blah 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 blah. You can get the current module's handle. Maybe I can find what I'm looking for from here. I haven't looked in this direction yet. Get module file name. Retrieve the fully qualified path for the file that contains the specified module. Okay, so LP file name. The module must have been loaded by the current process. Yeah, so how do I tell the operating system that I'm loading a module? Query optional delay load API. Remove LDL. Set default. Set free library. Disable thread call. Add DLL directory. What does that do? Now that's for the DLL search path. Get module file. Get module handle extended. How about this? Retrieves the module handle for the specified module and increases the module's reference count. LP module name. The name of the loaded module, either a DLL or AXE, or an address in the module. So it flags it. For module name, if the file name extension is omitted, the default library is appended. I don't know that this would work. This is probably going to assume that I use load library. Alright, let me see what this says. Got a link from the chat for suggested checking. So, it does not matter where you put private symbol files as long as you're able to tell the debugger where they are. The warning you're seeing does not have any effect on the stack trace, but the fact you're missing symbol calls for an app does. Configuring symbols in debug is as simple as using .sympath plus 2 sympath. Actually means nothing as long as it is reasonable. That my PGB has been found. Yeah, but I think that probably relies on the module system that I'm not actually talking to right now. If I knew how to make a module, that would make it be a different situation. Let's take a look at this one. Is a good place to start. sort out what's going on so you're in the right area. Right-click the module DLL you expected the PDB to be found in. It should look same directory as your DLL to begin with. Yeah, this is all like, okay, let me explain again. So I'm looking at the module window right here, and the problem is I don't have this, it's not a module because I didn't load it through load library, right? And I don't know how to tell it, hey, I loaded this manually, but I want to register a module or something. Alright, here's another suggestion. Tools, options. This looks like it's turning into chat, gives that tips to Alan Day. Which isn't necessarily what I was expecting, but I'm not opposed to it. Debugging. Symbols. Automatically load symbols from... Yeah, I'm not sure this is relevant either. Hi, Valbus. Yeah, I remember you mentioning that you were working on a similar thing. So my problem right now is that the system is doing something to crash, and I'm pretty sure I'm loading to the aligned barriers. I can go check again, because that is worth checking. But I don't know why it wouldn't be. And I'm not doing any relocations except for like the putting the sections in the right place. Like I scan through and make sure that there are no required relocations for the thing to work, and it fails to load the DLL if there are. So it only loads DLLs successfully if they don't require relocations. And then the only thing left to do is fix this little problem that I have. So let me reintroduce everyone to the problem from the beginning. Let me go to use when. So when I was doing this through load library, everything works. First of all, okay? So let's just look at that. Right? So there it is. That's how things go. It's slow because I'm in debug mode and I'm on a stream, and I'm doing a lot of output debug messages, but it works. It's those output debug messages that were making it slow, actually. Took me a minute. I was trying to figure out why it was slow. That's why I started listing those things. But load module just totally works. And the other thing is, if you do that, right, and then you like pause it somewhere, it'll probably pause while it's doing an output debug string because that takes forever. And you can see right here I have it as a module, right? And that's why it's able to associate symbols. The problem is, as far as I can tell, the API doesn't let you say, hey, I want you to treat this block of memory as a module or anything like that. There's nothing you can do. Now, while we're in this situation, I'd love to do one quick thing that I've wanted to do for a while, which is, we've got a DLL here. Why don't I take a look at AppStep? Let me pull up something real quick. Okay. We're in this DLL. AppStep. There it is. Let's take a look at that. I want to save the position of AppStep. Okay. And just gotta do boom. So there's the position. Let me save that over here. I'll delete all my old stuff because that wasn't really going anywhere useful. I finished that. So that's the position of AppStep. when I load with the library. Okay? That's step 1. Now I'll switch back to not using the API. And so now we don't have symbols, but I can still find where AppStep is loaded because I can find out right when the load happens, right? So it comes in here, it's going to load AppStep. Okay. Okay, so there's the location of AppStep when I load it manually. Let me drop that right there. Okay. You can see the alignment's the same out to like 3 whole bytes. So 3 whole bytes worth of the first 3 bytes are the same, so there's no way it's not aligned to a good number of kilobytes of pages, right? So that answers that question. At least for the text section, we know it's aligned. I could still stand to check the data section is aligned. But it has to be, because the only thing that, yeah, never mind, that was horse shit, that's not a problem. Onwards. Alright, so everything works, and now I'll cause a crash, and we'll find out that exact moment, still the same, so that's at least good. The consistency remains with us. It's at this location, right? Alright, so there we have on the top the location of the step function when loaded by load library, by the Windows API. Here's the location when I'm loading it. Here's the location of the break. So you see where I'm going with this? I hope you can see, because this is going to be pretty cool if it works. Okay. Now what is the differential? Okay, right, that's assigned a number. Fair enough. Ah, fuck. Okay, so that bottom number there, that is the address of the problem when I'm loading by load library. So let's find out what that is. I could do that. I could look at loading it at the position, insofar as has suggested that I load it at the position that load library loads it at, to see if that's somehow a problem. It could be. It could be that it's somehow getting a global variable in the wrong position. Now I've like thoroughly tested, or not thoroughly. I've gave a good test. I ran a test DLL that tested that static globals worked and stuff. To some extent, but there could still be weird things like a string pool or something that goes wonky, that doesn't relocate right. But like I said, the relocation table also doesn't have anything listed like that is marked as important. Like the only relocations I have to do are type ignore this relocation, whatever that is for, or type debug, right? And I don't even have, like, I could fix the debug ones. I could fix the debug relocations, but I don't think that will matter. It seems like it's not even giving me wrong debug info, it's giving me no debug info. It refuses to even suspect that there's debug info, right? It just doesn't want to do that because it's not in a module. So I don't think that would matter until I got the module thing straightened out anyway. And those are the only two types that that this DLL contains. But anyway, I could try that, because there could be other things I'm not thinking of. But before I do that, I want to see if I can track down what address is actually causing the break, because that right there might clear up the question of who it is. What kind of problem it is. Okay. Of course, the idea that it's string literals isn't very likely, because I have a bunch of string literals just on the printouts, and those are working with the DLL manually loading. So, anyways, this address here should be the address of something in disassembly. So, I want to pop it right there, grab a copy of it, switch over to the disassembly. I don't really care about that, so that can go away. I want to go here. Okay, cool. So that is where the thing goes wrong, right there, AEA2. And really what's happening there, let me take those off because that is all messy. I hadn't realized that x86-64 wasn't affixed with instruction set. I hadn't realized that. I don't really have a reason, I guess, to have thought otherwise. It's just I didn't think people would make those anymore. But here it is. I've learned that today. So what happens here is so what happens here is right here it breaks, and that is, let's see if we can do the math. Plus rax. Rax is 10, might be the position of string in data. So what is list data? Well, let me put a breakpoint right there and actually get to it so we can find out. Okay. So there's a breakpoint there. What is list data? List data is a string and a flag. Okay. This is in the Lexing code, I believe. True. Yes. Flags. Okay. So, let me take it the whole list real quick. So the first mob there is just getting a pointer to the list, then it's doing the offset by RC. Then it's loading. Okay, so it gets the pointer to the offset, then it loads that data there. It then does enough to get to the. It knows that data is at 0, so it assumes it's pointing at 0. It gets enough to go to rax, which is what? Which is what? Well, I is in rax, and then I guess it's multiplied. Right, okay, so it's multiplied by the size of one data element, which is 16 when it expands out. This is not SQL. The bottom left stuff is disassembly, and the top and stuff is all debug stuff. The bottom right corner is breakpoints. That's breakpoints. So anyway, yes, this is 16 bytes because there's 4 wasted bytes there and whatever. So that's multiplying rax by 16, and then it's checking that. So move. And then it takes the RCX that it's just got, and that's a data array, which is another pointer. So it does that plus rax, and now Rax is pointing at right, and so it's right there, that data pointer there that goes wonky. That is interesting. Where does that data pointer come from? I need to know. It comes from 4ed app.dll. Yep, it's in the module. Okay, so we have some new information. It does appear to me to be that that this code is looking at something that's in a static data section, so that might not totally be working after all. Let me go back to this. And list.data, where does list come from? List. List comes from outside. Yeah, I bet that, let me look at the call stack. Can I go to... Why don't they look at... Oh, there, go to source code. There we go. Okay. Insofar as I can't do breakpoints with the custom loader, I could stop at that point, but I know they're going to be different because... Oh, I know what I can do. I think I know what you're looking for. Hi, Fucon, do you have, or not Fucon, yeah, Fucon, do you have an answer for this modules thing? How do you load something manually from here? Just to be clear, again, 4ed app is not a listed module when I use the custom loader, right? It has to go through the API to be on the module list. It doesn't know that there's a module if I just run it myself. So if the manual thing requires that the module be listed, then it doesn't work, because the problem is that there is no module. The problem isn't that the PDB is missing. The problem is that there's no module to attach a PDB to. So if you can solve if your solution is to that, then it will help. Okay, so insofar as has the right idea, he gave me a good one. Let's see, disassembly. No, take me to this. There we go. Yeah, the inability to set breakpoints is a pretty big problem. I could solve it if... There's a couple ways I could solve it. I could solve it if there was an API call that lets you register with your code with the debugger, which it seems like this needs to exist. I don't know why it wouldn't, except for the fact that they probably don't want you doing this for whatever reason. But I'm not going to develop on Windows with this. I'm going to develop on Windows with their API anyway. This has just got to work correctly for code that already is debugged on Windows to run on Linux, is the ultimate goal. Plus, it's interesting. So, you kind of have to do it anyway. Okay, so we need to look at the registers, because insofar as has set us on the right path, which is that the RAX and the RCX registers give us a lot of information. And what we really need to do is look at the offsets of all that information. So what I want to do for now is say that right there Yep, that right there is information that I should save. Another thing I could do for a breakpoint is I can call Win32's debug break or something like this, which would signal to the debugger to do a breakpoint. I'm still not sure that it would be super useful because it's like even then it's not in like you might be able to set breakpoints just right in the assembly, but like I think it would go, oh, this code, it would freak out, and all I would be able to see is this assembly anyway, right? Which is better than nothing, I guess. If you break inside the disassembly, that's at least somewhat useful. But you still need, like, you still have to do a lot of work to figure out what source code you're talking about anyway. So like that's the real downside to debugging through this system. Okay, so and again, it seems like there's got to be a way to tell the debugger to associate a PDB with code even though it's not in a module, or to create a module. One of those two things needs to happen. I just can't find it today, and I'm kind of sick of looking through Windows stuff, so I'm doing something to solve my immediate problem for now. Okay, so, well, racks won't be of any use. You know, yeah, it's a little tricky actually insofar as because I'm breaking the first time through this, and this function could be called many times, so it's not totally clear that it's always going to break at the same spot, but we're going to take a leap of faith and hope that if it's broken for one thing, it's broken for all of them, so it's breaking on the first thing is going to be my assumption. I'm going to assume that it's breaking on the first thing, and if it's not, we'll find out soon enough. Because there's a good chance that if it's breaking, that it's breaking on the first one, because the reason it would break is that the pointers are off for some reason, and if the pointers are off, it's going to break on any of them, right? Because they'll all be off. They'll probably... it's hard to say for sure, but we're going to hope that it's the first one. It seems like there's a good chance that it might be the first one. Okay. With all that talking aside, how about I plug this in? So that right there is the value of RCX right now, and that's relative to, let me get the, that's how I get from step, right, I went and deleted the other things, but I can get those back. Okay. I think we have all the information there that we're going to need to find out what the RCX should be, and if it's like off by a round of some bits, maybe we have our confirmation, but if it's way off, maybe we don't. Okay, so the top number is where the step function exists, where it resides when the load library function call loads the little DLL. This is where the step function resides in my loader, and this is where the RCX was about to load from in the load library. So now we're going to find out where RCX should load from in mind by taking this number, subtracting this number, and adding in this number. Okay, so we want to see it loaded there when the break happens. Or No, we want to see it loaded near there, but not quite there. Whoa. That's not even a little bit close. That's not even in the range. Right, so this is the same code. We know what this code is doing, so we can be a little bit smarter than I was able to be when we first looked through it. This code is going through a list of strings in the lexer, and it's saying, "Hey, I have this struct. Rax, what is that?" So it's still Rax 0. That's nice. We could use RSP possibly to confirm that it's the same. I'm not sure. Where, by the way, is the jump? I don't know. Don't know. What might be a good idea at this point is to try to create a test. I'm going to try to finish this line of thought, but I think it might be a good idea to try to create a simpler situation where I can figure out where all the disassembly comes from and then work it back from there, right? That seems like it'll make my life easier to in the future for future purposes. Now it's breaking because this is not a valid location for reading, and it's not. I've double checked that because I've checked this before. It's always reading from this location when it screws up. So what would be really nice is RSP hasn't changed. Can I step this back? Will it allow that? Will it work? So Rax is 0. That's what it should be. Okay. That's kind of cool. So RSP. What I wanted this to do right now is it's trying to, I want to watch through the steps that happen. So it took RSP and it put something in RCX. What did it put there? That number. Okay. I wonder if I can do breakpoints then. Ooh, maybe I can. Let's try this again. It's seeming to me like there's a good chance that this has to do with static memory in some way, which means I have to revisit my static memory. It's not working as well as I thought. Apparently the breakpoints aren't going to work. So, I mean, that should have gone right there and it didn't. So, no. Breakpoints don't work. Okay. So the other thing I was going to do, I'll do it again real quick, is watch RCX happening. So first we get this value, then we load from that to get something else. And that's where it becomes messed up. That should be inside of the DLL, and the fact that it's not is kind of weird, right? That's the stack pointer, if I'm not mistaken. You would think that printf debugging would be a good option, but there's some challenges that I don't feel like dealing with on that end. I tried printing out here, but it was not you know, like accurate. It flushes at random times, so it's like unreliable. It seems actually like what's happening is like it shows this message, but we're not even anywhere near the redraw stuff were lexing code. It could be a parallel code problem too, right? Because the lexer should be running in parallel. That might be why that was inaccurate. Okay, so that explains that. It's not that it's not got to do anything with the buffer flushing theory that I had. That wasn't the problem. The reason this was changing is because the thing that's crashing is running in parallel to the main thread. Okay? So, all you smart people out there who know how these things work, is there any good reason why parallel code wouldn't work when normal code would? You know, I can test something right now. I'll just switch to the gap buffer, because that doesn't allow lexing, and as long as there's no lexing, we won't have anything running in parallel. Cool. So it's a parallel code problem, people. What does that mean? Or it could still be a problem. It might still be a problem of statics, because there's no guarantee. Since I'm the. It's a little hard to say because the code that runs in parallel isn't being done anymore. Like, everything is working, but maybe the lexer code is broken. So I'd have to find a way to test the lexer code without it running in parallel to be absolutely sure. 10 minutes to go. What's the best thing I could do in 10 minutes that will get us a cool result? Well, what could go wrong with parallel code in my current scheme? What could go wrong? I mean, the stack pointers aren't shared in that. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I think the best thing I could do is try to finagle the code around a bit and try to run the lexer single-threaded, and then we'll have our answer. That seems like the best expense of time now. So, if Emacs is in a cooperative mood, there we are. So let's see. I need to talk to. Well, there's one pretty easy way of doing this. Post job, right? And instead of actually posting a job, for example, I can just do the job here. Or, you know, I could do it in another way, which is I do everything right up until the point where I'm about to push onto the job stack. Right index, right? But I don't actually. Well, what I actually want to do is just not have the threads working, and then and then do the work right here instead. So I'll come back to this. I want to go to the thread. Is there like a worker? What is the name of this? How what is it called? Yeah, those can go away. They're not helping me anymore, really. Um, okay. Yes, yes, yes. Where thread proc? Okay. So thread proc, your new lot in life is going to be if read index is not equal write index and 0, you may then do the work on a job, right? Okay. And then I don't know if this is a good idea because there's a possible deadlock situation that I'm getting myself into, maybe. Yeah, that's not a good route. Okay, so a better way would be, where's the job? File view, where's the job? It's gotta be somewhere. Xer doesn't have the job, does it? How can there not be a job in here? Oh, is it? Okay, so I've changed the name of it. Gotcha. Alright, so this is the parallel job. Job callback. And what I want to do is say this does not exist for now. Let's find the locations where we do first Lex parallel, and instead of ever posting these jobs, I'll just I just gotta basically do the work, right? So job full Lex. There's really no fantastic way to rewrite this code because I still need to call into it. Did I keep around a non-parallel version of Lex? I don't know. I don't know that I have a non-parallel version that I can just swap in here, because even if I try what I'm doing now, I still need this function to exist, which is fine. I could call it directly, but then I'm right back in the same problem where it's going to try to acquire the frame lock right here at the end. It shouldn't be too hard to just remove that one dependency, hopefully. So what I'll do is I'll say, alright, what is the callback? Okay. This will still take system functions from the system. No to the thread context, no to the thread memory, void data star star, what is that? Data 1, data 2. Right, so the threading system really kind of needs to be revisited anyway, is another lesson there. Let's see if that's looking okay. undeclared identifier. Right, you do not have access to memory. That's okay. I'm going to help you with that. Oh, shoot, that's general memory. Actually, maybe I can't help you quite as much. We are just hacking something together. So, why did I ever decide to separate the two memory systems? Fine. Okay, so you want some memory, Not sure how far through the stack I would have to push to get that back. So the easier thing to do is say the way I'm going to give you memory is we'll just grab some memory like so, and the memory dot size will equal. I'll grab a giant bunch of memory just to make it work. Memory dot data. Let's put an underscore here maybe. System get memory, come on, system get memory, memory size, data memory pointer equals memory. Okay. And down here, I don't want there to be any mentions of locks anywhere. Okay. Okay. Okay, and okay. At the very bottom, I should... That's a general memory operation? Yeah, if tokens, else... That's not a problem. Okay. Alright, so at the bottom I want to make sure to free this memory here. Here's the chunk, and system free memory. Super. So what I need is a real quick like system grow memory. Here's the system, here's the memory, and I'll just throw this together real quick. Internal void data memory system if no no if, stop saying if. New size equals memory size times 2. Memory data equals system get memory new size. Mem copy into there from there by this amount. Finally, system free memory the old, right? And set this guy's size to the new size. Okay, so that should do a nice grow memory. System functions equals cannot convert. It's a very complicated conversion between one pointer type and another, especially when one of those pointer types is void. Job data. Right, so now what I want to do is, instead of posting a new job, I just call an inline sort of, shouldn't even be called job full X, should it? It should be called no. Full X. Here is the system pointer. Here's the file of interest. Here's the general memory pointer. Go to town. Right. I want to go down to the other one though, that I just killed. Give it the same deal. Okay. Now, before I do anything, I want to see if this works. I don't want to like run it and have bugs that I debug when I'm not even like sure that the other bug is fixed, right? Like there could be a bug in this changes I've just made, so I'll test it without the variability of the DLL underneath. Ah! Didn't work. Well, I'm not totally sure why that would be different. See what I'm saying is it's like, oh, this is non-zero. It's pointing to a valid pointer and everything, but why did it get called? Not sure. Let's see if we tried to select this twice now for some reason. Okay. Command set settings. Oh, interesting. Lex says CPP. I have a bug in my code that you can only see when it's not in parallel, which doesn't have anything at all to do with the other bug from before. This bug is more about .740 in 4ed. So what happened there is at some point I went parallel and I never caught a bug that's happening where if the job hasn't finished by the time it reaches this particular line, it doesn't notice that it's a sort of looking at launching it twice for some reason. I'm not totally sure why I haven't caught that before, so I have to put that on my to-do list to look over the parallel scheme, because it's one of the oldest things now. Everything else has been renovated, but the parallel stuff has become some of the oldest stuff in the code base that's still alive. So I should definitely revisit that sometime soon. Okay, so non-parallel lexing up and running is what we just saw, but I'm loading it through the Windows DLL loading API. So let's try swapping that back out. Hmm. Oh, too far. There we go. Okay. Okay, so this is running through the this is running through the custom loader, my handmade loader. So the 4ed app is not showing up on the modules list. Same problem. So it's not about parallel code, it's about static variables. That is confirmed. So it's probably not something that goes over my head, which is good because if it was parallel, that would be something that does go over my head, and I would be out of my depth to solve this. But I think that that's all the time I have for streaming today. Thank you everybody for bearing with me while I worked on this sort of absurd little tangent of a project on 4coder. See everybody later.